What's going on, everybody? This is Jason Schroeder with Vital MTB. Today I'm joined by Lars Sternberg from Transition Bikes to chat about their second generation repeater e-bike equipped with SRAM's all-new powertrain system. Lars, thanks for having us out.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
For sure. This is actually cool for me because I was here almost 2 years ago for the first repeater, which means my time at Vital, this is the first bike I've seen 2 generations for.
Right.
Yeah.
Sweet.
It's a mark on my timeline. So the repeater was Transition's first foray into the electric assist world, and it was a 160 millimeter travel, hard charging, full power e-bike, and it had Shimano's well-known EP8 system. Since then, you've launched the lighter weight 2 bikes in 1 relay model, and now, less than 2 years later, you're launching Gen 2 powertrain repeater. It feels like a quick timeline. I think maybe a lot of consumers might seem or think that kind of is a quick timeline. So let's just go right into kind of the history of this bike and developing the powertrain model.
Yeah. So you're going to have to forgive me on the specific dates, but somewhere around 2.5, 3 years ago, we got word about the SRAM powertrain system coming. And it's been a super awesome project to work with them on. Being one of a few select brands to be partner in the project was like pretty awesome for us, especially us not being some of the biggest or the biggest company out there, or even one of the bigger ones. So that's been really awesome. And we've worked really closely with the SRAM team throughout the process, giving them feedback. And it's been really cool because it's always a conversation. It's never us telling them we need this or we need that, or them saying this has to be like this or this has to be like that. It's a constantly evolving process and has been up until now. And, we're a few weeks from launch right now. So things are pretty dialed. And we're stoked on that. And, it's just been, it's been a great journey. We have launched a few e-bikes in the last couple of years, but we're always working on a multitude of things. And so, it's challenging as a small team to be pulling all that sort of stuff off. But, it just so happens that these 3 products they didn't align together by any means, but, from the outside looking in, it might look like we were doing them all together, but that's not necessarily how it works on the backside. It's been a super fun project.
Sweet. We were talking, I believe, yesterday about you, Sam, and Billy going to Europe to do some early on testing. I thought that was pretty interesting, just hearing about you guys did that, I believe, the summer before I was up here for the first repeater. So you guys have been planning repeater 2 with powertrain since before repeater was even known to the public.
Correct. Yeah. And I think if my timeline is correct, for us, the Shimano repeater was pretty much cooked. Like it kind of was what it was going to be. And so at that time, that's what I mean. From the outside looking in, it might look like these things are overlapping, but that's not necessarily how it works all the time. And so I believe it was the summer of 2021 that we went to Germany to visit the team and actually get to ride the system for the first time. And I think that we rode Levos that were modified to accommodate the system, which ended up being the same bike that Yannick Pontal raced in 2022 to help test the system. That was our first experience with the system and on it. And it was a super fun couple days of riding bikes. And it was rad because they gave us enough information to understand how to operate the thing, but not the full story yet. And I think they withheld certain bits of information from us to allow us to provide unbiased feedback on our first experience. So we went for a couple hours riding, and then they kind of brought us to this spot, and we just expected to have like a quick little snack break or something. And there was like multiple SRAM vans and probably 15 technical engineers and some marketing folks from their team, and just kind of like swarmed us basically. And they're just like harvesting feedback. And that was really cool to see how willing they are to get direct feedback and willing they are to apply that feedback to what the system is eventually going to become. that was super awesome. And with us having the understanding a little bit more from a big picture level of what and how the system was meant to work, and what the options were within the system library, you could say, it definitely changed our experience a little bit. And yeah, it was great. It was a super fun trip.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Kind of getting into Powertrain as a brand, what are some of the main draws and benefits of equipping a bike with the system?
Well, this might be something that's like seems inconsequential and is overlooked, but with SRAM owning the entire system, a customer that buys one of these bikes can effectively go to anywhere that a SRAM product is sold and get support, that's amazing, because pretty much every bike shop in the world sells SRAM. So you effectively have a support network anywhere you are in the world. And with the way the system works and coexists with some of their existing componentry, you know, if you break a pod controller off while riding, like, you could just go to a bike shop and buy a pod controller, and that will immediately pair with the system.
Yeah.
So there are a multitude of things that actually, when you look at it from that perspective, the multitude of things are actually what make this such a rad product, from a customer's perspective.
Sweet.
Yeah.
As a longtime rider and now a self-proclaimed experienced e-bike rider, what are the standout features or characteristics that you think other riders will benefit from or appreciate with Powertrain?
Well, I would say these days, along with there's a handful of other systems out there and drive units out there that are kind of like the benchmarks, you know, that people are familiar with.
Yep.
And they're in bikes these days. The Powertrain system utilizes one of these drive units, which is tried and true, and their software and algorithm are what operate that drive unit and pair everything harmoniously with the rest of your controls and your points of interface.
Yep.
And you put that all together, it's a nice, tidy, clean package. I'm a huge fan of a very clean cockpit. And so not having a lot of cables floating around on your handlebars, just your front and rear brake cable, make my riding experience a lot better. Like, my bike feels like it rides better because my cockpit is clean.
Yeah.
And that seems hilarious. Might seem ridiculous, but it's a thing, you know? Like, we were talking about on trail the other day that, like, you have something loose on your bike or loud or noisy and your suspension feels like crap.
Yeah.
And then you eliminate that one thing, and then all of a sudden your suspension miraculously starts to feel better.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like in line with that part of the experience. And as we saw over the last couple of days, and I don't know, I'd be kind of curious to hear your thoughts, but, like, you know, one day we went on a big adventure ride, and part of one of the things that we like to do on mountain bikes is try and climb ridiculous things. Because you can, and you have to alter your perspective to be able to do so, because you actually can do so much more from a climbing perspective than you can on a regular bike. And you might look at a piece of terrain and be like, there's no way that I could ride up that, but you actually can if you commit to it, which is pretty awesome. And so we did a little bit of that over the last couple of days, and I would say the way the SRAM software interfaces with the drive unit is pretty awesome. Like, it's a very smooth delivery of power, which really helps it from a traction perspective. And it's not nervous in any way. It's very natural feeling. And I know that's a term that gets thrown around about, like, these types of products, but it works really well and delivers power really well. Yeah, that's what I got. I mean, I've got to be really careful here because I can't, like, place it against something else necessarily because those two things have to live together.
Yeah.
You know, it's really hard.
Definitely. I mean, and I think for anybody who's ridden or had the opportunity to ride a few different e-bike systems or motors, they all have a slightly different flavor, which is good on one hand that you can find what matches your pedaling habits or riding style.
For sure.
I would say Powertrain and specialized bikes I've ridden that have a Bros motor as well. That system, you don't have to change the way you pedal to maximize the drive unit and power on hand. That's the way I've interpreted it, where some other systems, I ride a certain way to maximize the power that's available, where the ride we've done the last 2 days, it's a lot more second nature. You just pedal like you normally would. There's no, oh, I should stay in this cadence range, or my first few pedal strokes might be different than I'm used to on a regular bicycle. It is a lot, like, the natural feel is definitely overplayed, but I thought way less the last 2 days about changing my riding style to maximize the electric assist than I do on other units.
For sure. And I would take that one step further in some of the directions and choices that SRAM has made with the powertrain system. Some questions have come up throughout this process about, like, well, why aren't there more modes? Like, where you have other systems that have like 7 different mode options to choose from. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but the direction that SRAM has chosen to take is, with the whole package, is like simplicity and ease of use as the rider, and focus on your experience on the bike. And that comes back to, like, my comment about the cable routing. Like, you just have, like, everything's super clean. There's not a lot of clutter. There's not a lot to worry about. There are actually a lot of features and things that you can dig into with the system, and things on hand if you choose to use them. But otherwise, you can get on the bike, hit the power button, and, like, you have range and rally, and you can go. And then if you want to experiment, you can go into, like, auto shift. You can use coast shift. You don't have to do that, but if you want to do that, that's available. And then there's a multitude of things that you can adjust and manipulate via the SRAM app if you want to do that, but you don't have to do that. Like, and that's kind of what makes the repeater powertrain kind of more like a regular bike experience. It's obviously heavier, and it is an e-bike, but you get on it and there is a power button you hit, but other than that, you can just go ride.
Yeah. I think simplicity, like you're saying, from only having 2 pods on your handlebars and in the cockpit being real simple, to the way the motor feeds power maybe being more natural, like a regular pedaling experience, like all that kind of just simplifying your ride experience. The coolest takeaway I've had from the last 2 days, for sure.
Yeah. And if you isolate any one of these features that they have on tap for you to utilize, it might not be the most groundbreaking thing by itself, but you put all of those things together, and that's kind of what makes the system what it is.
Yep.
And the experience, and that's ultimately what they've gone for, is like the experience that they want the rider to have. And I'm not saying that one is better than the other, of like all the plethora of options out there. There's a lot of great options out there, but this is the direction that they chose to take and offer a more simple option. And it's great to have options.
Yeah. Yeah. Should we get into talking about repeater powertrain itself? Because we're here to ride the Gen 2.
Yeah.
What are the main differences or changes between the first and second generation repeater?
There's not a whole lot. Obviously, there is a different drive unit, battery, software, controls, screen on the top tube sort of thing. The bike looks a little different, but fundamentally it's still a repeater. The Shimano repeater has a 30 millimeter bottom bracket drop, 64 degree head tube angle, and was 160 millimeter front and rear travel. This bike has a 25 millimeter bottom bracket drop, a 63.5 degree head tube angle, and 170 millimeters of travel. Effectively, everything else is the same thing other than the cosmetics.
Yep. And weight is about the same, roughly?
Weight's about the same. Yeah.
But the powertrain model has a bigger battery than the Shimano one.
Yes, the powertrain has a 720 watt-hour battery, and the Shimano repeater is a 630 watt-hour battery.
Mullet compatible?
It is mixed wheel compatible.
I'm much more of a fan of mixed or MX.
Yeah.
So I can't believe I said mullet.
Yeah. I know, it's like ingrained. Yeah, so we sell the bike as a dual 2.9 front and rear, but there is a shock flip trip to accommodate those that want to put a 27.5 rear wheel on, and we might not sell that option, but you can easily do that should you choose to do it. And there are two build options, GX and XO, and yeah, this kind of fills the part in our line of the kind of more premium option. And you have the Shimano Steps bike, which is kind of lives alongside of it with a little bit more options in pricing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right on. Why did you guys decide to go up to 170 mil travel front and rear? Was there any real main reason?
I mean, we talked back and forth about it quite a bit, and I think, if I recall correctly, and we work on a lot of stuff, so sometimes it's hard to recall these specific details, but I think at first it was slated to be 160, but I think ultimately what it came down to is like, it's 10 more mil of travel, and why not just have all the travel?
That's been my opinion with full power e-bikes.
Yeah.
You guys should do one with the dual crown up front.
Yeah. It's hard with the battery in there, you know, like you're going to limit your steering radius.
True.
And that comes down to the riding experience, you know, if you can't get rid of the switchback because you can't turn your bars far enough.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
No more cables through the headset. Everyone can rejoice.
Yeah, they go through the front of the head tube.
All right, sweet.
Yeah.
And that was actually a question I had when I was looking at it. Is I was like, why is there ports on both sides of the frame? But that was for if people want to run moto style, or whatever we want to refer to it as.
Totally.
Brakes on both sides.
So that's to accommodate people in different parts of the world that run rear brake on the right or left. And or if you want to put a mechanical dropper post on, there are great and perfect solutions to do that. You could put a mechanical dropper on. You would have to remove the left side pod controller, which would eliminate the use of walk mode. But you can control range and rally through the top tube display. You can also use the Gen 1 axis dropper lever with a mechanical and kind of like stagger it up above it. So there aren't like perfect, super clean, tidy solutions at this time, but everybody's working on a lot of things, and I don't know how much I could say about that, but it's very possible that there will be a solution in the future.
Yeah.
But we did accommodate for it in our frame should you choose to want to do that.
Sweet. Which type of riders do you see reaching for the repeater in either version of Powertrain or EP8 versus your relay? Because your relay is a very unique model in your lineup. Who do you see in your head each of those bikes being for?
Well, you know, we call the relay the mountain biker's e-bike, right? And when you ride a repeater and a relay back to back, it is an entirely different experience. You know, one has more power than the other, one has a bigger battery than the other, one is lighter than the other. You put all those things together and your riding experience is significantly different. The relay is going to act on trail a lot more similarly to a regular mountain bike that doesn't have a drive unit and battery in it. Whereas, you know, when you're riding a 50-pound bike down the trail, like there are I would say pros and cons, but there are differences, right? And it's a little bit harder to maneuver because of the weight and bunny hop over things and like skirt around things as easily as you could a regular bike. But you also get the benefit of the weight of the bike on trail and the way that it interacts with the ground, which is pretty sweet. I'm a pretty big fan of. The relay is kind of a blend between a regular bike and a heavier e-bike or a heavier bike like an e-bike. And it also has the option, the modularity option, to remove the battery should you want to go ride and have a regular bike experience. And we're at an interesting time with these bikes where, I mean, sometimes it might be kind of hard to decide, but I would say somebody that maybe wants a regular bike and an e-bike in one package, you know, might opt for a relay. And maybe somebody that is just an e-biker and they want an e-biker and they want the full power and they want the full battery might choose a repeater. And then there's a blend of those two in between. You know, I really like riding both. There are different scenarios in which I might grab one over the other. But yeah, that's what I got.
Very good. Different flavors.
Yeah.
Different riders.
That's it.
I think I'm getting towards the end of any questions I have, but how does it feel to be the only brand at the time of launch that doesn't have a flammable or combustible name?
We're pretty stoked. Yeah, we are pretty stoked. And I would sort of caveat there that we are the ones that mentioned that here to the Vital team.
Yeah. I figured I couldn't say because it's too great.
It's a little feather in the cap there.
I love it.
But yeah, no, I mean, to that point, we feel very fortunate and honored to have been selected of a selected party of all the potential brands out there to be partnered with SRAM in this project. And it's been an awesome journey. And I know there's a lot of internet haters out there that just don't, I don't know. It's very interesting. Like I was one up until 6 years ago or something, but times change, and we were talking on trail today that and let's put transition bikes aside right now. And if I can speak just personally, I've had a lot of experience riding e-bikes these days, the last few years, and what I found with them is the ability to kind of go adventure and ride stuff that you might not normally ride on your regular bike. And I think a lot of people have a perception that they're only used to self-shuttle, or they're only for lazy people or whatever. And I don't know, maybe you can comment, but we went for almost a 30-mile ride yesterday. It was somewhere, my Garmin said 7,200 feet. Your guys have said 48. We'll probably split the difference. So say between 5,000 and 5,500 feet. We were out there for 4.5 hours, and we covered a lot of ground, and we got to see some epic viewpoints. We got to ride a tremendous variety of trails between moto trails, old heritage, multi-use trails, some really old woods, some really weird stuff.
Yep.
And it was just an awesome adventure. And I don't think people really understand, maybe the people that don't like e-bikes really know what you can actually do with them. And it's kind of a personal challenge I put on myself to expose people to what's possible with them, and how you can actually use them that don't fit a stereotype that somebody that might hate them be, and I don't know, what did you think of the riding that we did in the last couple of days?
Yeah, I would agree. I think I've looked at e-bikes from that lens of if you're short on time, or it gives you the ability to do a trail you typically pedal faster or more, instead of maybe the whole adventure aspect, or I really enjoy coming up here and riding because you guys do have a lot of either motorcycle trails and stuff that we go climb, that it's less about accessing a descent or getting to somewhere, and we're enjoying the climb aspect and the challenge, and the goal isn't to necessarily make everything, but to kind of push your ability when you're climbing, which generally mountain biking, climbing can be a means to an end for a descent more often than not. So that's been a fun eye-opener, looking at the climbs and the similar headspace that you look at descents, and can I clean this feature or ride this section? The ride we did yesterday that was quite long and varied in terrain, I would say half of that ride was not trails I would typically seek out on a regular bicycle to go ride, because they were in between areas that generally you ride up here in Bellingham, or we were doing out and backs to viewpoints that were a pretty big effort to get to, and the view was epic, but I don't know if I put in the effort generally to get all the way up there just for that. So from that aspect, it is really cool. And I mean, I think back to 2 years ago when I was up here, and it was a lot wetter and slicker, and we went and just rode some debatably stupid climbs. But I left there and went back to Boise, Idaho. That was a lot of fire road climbing, And half of my ride, which was the climb, was a lot less engaging and a lot boring. It was just boring compared to what we did up here, where it's more about maximizing the fun you're having throughout the whole ride, which I think is a really cool aspect. Or even today on a climb that I think Lars can go back and name after himself because he finally made it up.
Well, it only took 5 years.
Yeah. But, I think I tried it 3 or 4 times. And it kind of brings you back to like being a kid and sessioning something. And, we still do that now with sessioning jumps or sections descending or a corner that's really good. But it's hard to argue that if you could have that moment or experience more often on a ride or during a climb, it's pretty awesome. It's pretty fun. Like being able to joke around with your friends and laugh and do a climb that at the top we're all like gassed and fully anaerobic.
Oh yeah.
But
how many times on that long climb yesterday did we have to take breaks because we were fully cross-eyed?
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. And if that was a climb that we were doing on just a mountain bike ride, it would have been a full hike a bike. Like there's no option to pedal any of that. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Yeah, it creates more connectivity, within the loops. And like when we rode yesterday, there were periodic sections of trail that were not very long and was definitely not a tight section of trail that like you would pedal to go ride on its own. But to be able to link all that stuff together and like hit all those little sections in a huge loop, to me, that's kind of like what it's all about. It's like, and also it's like, I don't view, and I'm still kind of talking from a personal perspective, the e-bike is not a replacement of my non-e-bike. Like it is just expanding the riding horizons, and you can still go ride the same stuff you ride on your regular bike, or use it to get a quick lap after work, or like maybe you're just not in shape. I'm not nearly in the same shape that I was when I was racing, and so like I love it. It's sick. Like I can ride more now. To the folks, I mean, play me or whatever, but to the people that say they're only for lazy people, like how many times were you cry breathing?
Yeah. You might not just be riding or seeking out the right terrain of e-biking, because you can make an electric assist bike of any kind a very relaxing experience, but the same can be said about going out on a mountain bike ride. It's just totally kind of the trails you choose to seek out.
Totally. So. Yeah, that's a great point. And yeah, I also would not advocate for climbing up descending trails, and everybody has different access to types of bike riding, and maybe some areas have more or less of things that you could get into, but I would just say more or less, like they're great for a good adventure,
Yeah. Another tool in the shed.
Or a quick rip.
Yeah, that's true. You can choose how you want to use it.
Yeah.
All right, closing out repeater powertrain conversation. This is coming out at time of launch, so our bike's available right now for people to go pick up. And then you mentioned 2 builds. Do you know the price points on those?
I don't know the price points offhand.
No worries.
So,
scroll below in our review.
We have some mediums in stock.
Okay.
We will have larges shortly, sometime in the near future, like plus or minus a month, and then we will have extra larges and smalls, plus or minus another month or 2 after that.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, thank you for having myself and Vital out here.
Yeah,
it's fun to do again. What can you tell us about Repeater V3? I'm sure you're working on it.
Oh, jeez. Don't put me on the spot.
You're all good. Is it going to pedal for us yet? Come on.
I hope not.
Sweet. I think that's it.
Sick.
Hell yeah.
Awesome.